Well, I thought I'd start today with my first video and go over my fly tying desk and how I've got it organized, which is not very organized. I'm trying to come up with ways to organize it better, and we'll go through some tools. Materials that I leave on my desk that I use readily, and maybe look for some ideas on better ways to organize where I keep my reference books and threads. I have all kind of threads. It's just the ones I use most often, and my tool caddy, which is packed full. And then I keep a drawer on the left side where I keep all my stuff that I make my wings with. I've got a Thompson wing former that I use. I've got actually a couple of them used to form quill wings, and a full set of brass, the wing burners I use quite often, not much. I mostly make parachute wings. Then the River Road cutters that are useful to the region I live in. The middle drawer of my desk is mostly a junk drawer. It's where I keep tools that I don't use very often. My hair cutter I use for a hair stacker, X-Acto knives, lighters, thumb drives that I keep some fly patterns on, just junk mostly, rubber bands and fishing line that I use for different things. Pliers, I keep one of these magnetic pickup tools, so if I dropped hooks, it's pretty handy for that. Tabs if I want to mark in a reference book. And I keep my reference books also, like I said, on my desk, where the ones I use most often. I've got several packed up, but that's the ones I use most often. And then the right side is mostly quills, different turkey quills, pheasant tails, things like that I keep put in here that I use all the time. The majority of my stuff is packed up in boxes, and I just get it out as I need it. Then in this drawer on the right, I keep a lot of dry fly saddles, necks, capes, and just some excess dubbing. That the ones I use most often. The rest of them stay in a tub where they're sort of protected. In the bottom drawer, I keep a lot of midge saddles that I also use all the time when I fly, and I keep extra bags of hackle down there that I might be using. I keep my fly gauge. It's a boys. I've had this thing for quite a while. I've moved it from one desk to the other. I found this on eBay at one time and used it and liked it, and I've always kept using it, I guess. But I keep the dubbings that I use normally daily if I tie. Keep them organized and labeled where I can see them and get them out. I can use all the little boxes that comes with dubbing, the dispenser boxes. I do have some of these that I'm trying, made by Hairline, and verdict's still out on them. I ain't decided yet if I like them or not. They're a little bit hard to load up, but they are handy. They take up a lot less space. Some kapak, I may have mispronounced that, butchered that word or something, but some of their dubbings, and a lot of dubbings that I make on my own. I keep all my dubbing stuff in the drawer on the left. I've got the brushes that I use to mix with. I've got coffee grinders, all my clippers I use for different furs. This is a battery powered dubbing, or it's actually a spice grinder, but I take it in my travel kit a lot. Then this is a dubbing brush maker that I made, and this block sits on top of it like that, and the dubbing wire over here, and we'll make a video on using that one day. extension cord for my coffee mill. It's over here on the right side. The next drawer below it is all hooks. And I keep them in these containers. Try to organize them by type: dry fly, wet fly, hopper, and keep all those put away, the ones that I use up most. The bottom drawer is soft tackle, and that's where I keep all my hen necks and capes and saddles, partridges and pheasants that I'm going to be using. The rest I keep in storage. On the left side, this is a travel kit, tool kit of fly tying that I have that I put together. And over here I keep all my flash. I keep it in these hairline stash pods that I picked up and sort of liked. And I've also adapted those over to keeping winging material. I keep all my poly yarns and my parapost and things like that. Okay, this is my tools, waxes, bobbins. I use the Loon high and low tax swags. I use it quite often. And I also use their UV finish. I seem to like it a little bit better than some of the other that I've used. The Zap I use for foam. Like everyone else, I use Sally Hansen, my UV light. I keep a little bottle of acetone, which I use to thin. Wonder Wax, I like it. Actually, one of the better waxes I found is the Vinards, and one that I made myself out of beeswax, and I used a toilet bowl ring, wax toilet bowl ring, and I forgot the mixture. I'd have to look. I keep a journal over here where I keep those recipes, but I made up quite a bit of it about a year or so ago and got to where I like it. And if I go through my tools, I'll start with my dubbing brushes and stuff. A lot of it's homemade, some of it's bought. This brush I like. I use it most of all. This is a eyeliner brush that I got, my wife was done with, and I use it for a dubbing brush quite a bit. I think this one is Stonefo. It works pretty well. This was a little dental hygiene brush. Works good on small flies. I picked it up maybe at Dollar General one day and started using it, and I use those quite often. Dubbing rakes. I have that one. I've got a Law's partridge rake that I've had. It's the best one that has ever been made. This thing works great, and hold on, I'm doing this with my phone. I'm not really set up to videos. I'm just learning this as I go. But this is a partridge fine ceramic dubbing rake. They're very hard to find. They've been out of circulation for several years. I've never found any more of them, but that's by far the best dubbing rake that I've ever used. I keep just some extra bobbins. I keep a comb. Use it for different hairs. And I have a little steamer that I'll steam the hair straight if they're crooked. And I keep a old toothbrush that I use for dubbing brushes on a lot of the bigger flies. Hair stackers. I use two different ones, the brassy and this one here. Both work pretty well. These are two things I made to measure wings and tails. They start out with a size 20 on the bottom. I just made these out of some bamboo sticks, and I can use them to measure. I compared them off of my hackle gauge. Somewhere on here it's got a tail, and for wet flies, hackle, and things like that. I use those every once in a while. Just numerous little hackle pliers. This one I use quite often, and these are also out of circulation. I think J. Doran was the company that made them. by far the best tackle pliers I've ever used. You'll break a feather before you'll pull it out of them. Some bodkins that I've made that I use. There are some I made out of deer antler from here on my property that I've kept over the years. See if I can find everything else right here that I keep around. But my numerous scissors, my whip finish tools. I keep all these others. I use these thinning scissors right here quite a bit. I found these. I forgot who made them. Maybe it's on here. Anvil. And if you get too much hair, want to thin down, I don't know if you can see them, how they cut. They're serrated. And those things work great. Thin down, don't leave an even cut. I've actually used them to cut some hackle. If I wanted to make a fly that I didn't have the right size, I've actually cut it down. If the fish notice it, that they've been cut and they ain't gonna bite it, then I don't need to be fishing for them. But the loon scissors, Dr. Slick's, I use a lot of those. The curved, use them seldom, not a lot. Dubbing spinners. I keep some fingernail cutters in there to use to cut out some wings. My bobbin threaders. Numerous tweezers. Dubbing spinners. Some more bodkins. I got these. I forgot what they're actually called. But I use them with making dubbing brushes. You can put them, have a little thing that I press the dubbing down in. Then you can take these scissors and pick it all up. Or not scissors, they're tweezers. They have another use. I think they're some type of medical tweezers that I picked up. And over here I keep numerous powered reading glasses. As I get older, my eyesight's gone away, so sometimes I'll use a lower power, sometimes I'll use a 2.5, 3. The bobbin holder I made out of a piece of deer antler, and it's got different bobbins that I use. I'm sort of partial to the Timcos. That's what I started out using, and seems like they've held up, and I've used them for years. I've got one in here that I've actually used it so much that I wore through, and this one, I think, yes, I wore through it and with my thumb and ended up sorting it back. It's what I started out tying jigs and crappie flies with. I still use it, but works well. I have a bead assortment up here that I have a larger bead assortment that I keep out of the way, but this one here is just what's handy to pick up. This fly furniture thread holder, I keep all my thread. Most of what I tie with is sheer 14-aught and uni 8-aught. I've started using the Semperfly nano silk and seem to like it pretty well. And I use I've tried the Vivus 18-aught, and it seems to be holding up well for what I've been, or 16-aught, excuse me. But I've been trying some of the Semperfly threads. That one's 12-aught, and the shears. And I don't know, I haven't made up my mind. The jury's still out on which one I want to use all the time, but all of them have their purpose. And in this thread safe over here, thread spool holder, I keep different ribbings, I keep larger threads, I keep wires, like all different colors and sizes of wires. My lead wires, lead-free wires, tinsel, yarns. Have several hair stackers, but this one right here is the one I started out with, and still partial to it no matter what size I still use it. I did put this felt on the bottom of it because it makes it sort of deadened the noise a little bit when I was tying a lot of caddis flies and things like that, when you're having to always compact or stack the hair. My reference book, most of them are for the area around where I live, by local authors that I dig into mostly. I've got one Roger Lowe, I've got some of Don Howe's, Ian Rutter, just several in there from the local area. Then other books that have been popular in fly tying over the years, and that probably most people have them. I started out with that one over there, The Art of Fly Tying. Kept it around, still refer back to it. It's probably one of the best books that I found for a beginner, and works well. Or the articles in it are very informative. The dubbing I use, most of what I use is Superfine or Fly Tyer's Dungeon Bullfrog. I found that it dubs well, and it is very comparable to Superfine. Not a lot of difference in it. And the crap dubbing that Fly Tyer's Dungeon has, I have a lot of fly right still. Fly right's getting harder and harder to find. Well, I thought I'd start today with my first video and go over my fly tying desk and how I've got it organized, which is not very organized. I'm trying to come up with ways to organize it better, and we'll go through some tools. Materials that I leave on my desk that I use readily, and maybe look for some ideas on better ways to organize where I keep my reference books. And threads. I have all kind of threads. It's just the ones I use most often. And my tool caddy, which is packed full. And then my vise I use is a Renzetti. Traveler, I think, is the type. I have two. I also have a Renzetti Apprentice that I use in my tying kit. That's the only, other than the old Thompson vices that everyone started with, Renzetti's what I've always used and like them. I keep a small, I guess you'd call it an easel or something that you can set a book up in or I set my iPad in when I watch fly tying videos that I can copy. And that way I've got it here in front of me if I'm wanting to watch how someone's tying and try to duplicate it. Nothing in that drawer, but I keep like I said, I keep a book here that I try to keep all my recipes and everything wrote in. I keep a lit magnifying glass that I can fold down if I need, and my tying lamp. This here is a Maxpedition case that I made a travel kit out of, and I use it quite often. And I'm gonna hold on just a second. In the outside part of it, I keep a pair of hemostats. I keep a popsicle stick with some Velcro on it to brush dubbing, and a comb. I've got a cheap dubbing brush, or brush that I use to maybe carry some rabbit skin or something like that with me, or squirrel if I want to make some dubbing. Very seldom used, but I do keep it. But this little kit, it's held up pretty well, and I take it with me with a backpack and use it quite often. I keep a lot of things in it, lighters, tweezers, a couple pair of scissors, hackle pliers, some extra bobbins, whip finish tool. I keep my J. Dorans I use all the time, a hackle gauge, another pair of hackle pliers. Down in the backside right here, I keep a UV light in one of these. I can fill it in one normally, and some more hemostats and some more tools. But this thing's pretty compact. It fits. I carry just a shoulder bag, and it'll fit in it. And I carry it with my Renzetti Apprentice, and normally a couple of pieces of hackle and some dubbing. And like if I want to sit down somewhere and find a place on a pull off on a riverbank or something like that, or if I'm out fishing, I'll sit down, maybe tie a few flies. I've got to where I enjoy the tying part as much as I do the fishing. So, and I had a gentleman tell me here recently that there's more than one hobby involving fly fishing. It's fly fishing, fly tying, and the collection of materials. And it seems like I've got more adapted to the collection of materials lately, and the tying. Like I said, my video work with this is very primitive. I just started out with a phone and thought I'd try it. I've got a GoPro, but I haven't got set up to use it yet. And hopefully I'll be able to make some more videos as time goes on, get a little bit more in depth, and hope you like it. And if you don't, you don't. But if you like it, like it. And I'll see what I can put together next.